Welcome, everybody. We're honored to have you here today. Please be seated. We have a particular welcome for our servicemen, our National Guards, Army and Air personnel that are here today. We're here to pay tribute to you, and we thank you for your great and outstanding service. We say it all the time. We can't tell you enough and give you enough thanks for the service you've rendered to help us as a state, as a country. And as having the opportunity to serve with you and see your patriotism, your valor, your courage, your dedication to our country, to our Constitution is impressive to me, and you inspire me because of your service. So thank you for being here today. And let me recognize also with us is our Adjutant General, Major General Jefferson Burton, Brigadier General Kenneth Gammon, with the National Guard, Gary Harder, our Executive Director for the Department of Veterans and Military Affairs. Colonel Harder is a longtime military person himself, retired military, and is doing a great job as our Director of the Department of Veterans and Military Affairs. We also have with us members of our legislature who have been a part of this effort here today. Representative Paul Ray, Representative Lynn Hemingway, and Senator Gene Davis. I didn't see Senator Pete Knudsen was invited, and I don't know if he's been able to make it yet, but he was certainly a part of this effort. Let me just, by way of introduction, talk in terms as we kick off what's called Military Appreciation Month. And really, as the governor of the state of Utah, representing the 3 million people that call Utah home, we are trying to make sure that our military personnel understand we do appreciate your service. And we recognize the good service that you've rendered, not only now, but in times past, and we know the service you're going to render as we go forward. And we thank you for that. And we're going to try to make sure that for this month is part of what we, in fact, elevate and have the public at large understand and have a renewed appreciation. As I say, we can't thank you enough. And to that end, we've prepared a declaration. Let me just read this to you all, and I'm going to make a presentation of the copies of this to General Burton, and let me just read the declaration. Whereas the people of Utah appreciate and support all military personnel who have served and currently serve to protect our country and our freedoms. Whereas we also recognize families, friends, and neighbors whose love and support are instrumental to the success and accomplishments of our service personnel. Whereas veterans and active duty members of the U.S. Armed Forces know better than anyone that freedom is not free, but has been dearly bought by the lives, the sacrifices, and the services of millions of courageous men and women who accomplished extraordinary things in the name of defending liberty. Whereas we honor and pay tribute to those who lost their lives or were taken prisoner or went missing in action. And whereas we express gratitude to the U.S. Armed Forces and honor the heroism, patriotism, service, and sacrifice of service members who answer the call of duty, strengthening the Armed Forces' capabilities and mission readiness, and ensuring that the safety of our nation is protected and secure. Now, therefore, I, Gary R. Herbert, Governor of the State of Utah, do hereby declare May 2016 as Military Appreciation Month in Utah, and so signed. So General Burton and Colonel Harder, let me present these to you if I could, if you come forward. I'm going to have them speak in here in just a minute, and we'll hear from our representatives and senator about their efforts on some legislation that we're going to sign here today ceremonially. But let me, I've told this story before, but I think it really does illustrate my feelings towards our military. As some of you know, I had the opportunity to serve in the Army Guard myself for a little over 6 years. And so I have a little bit of an appreciation for those who wear the uniform. My father-in-law was a World War II Army pilot. My father served during Korea. My uncle and my aunt served during World War II, so I have an appreciation as a family member of those who served in the military. I remember having the opportunity here a few years ago as governor to go to the Middle East. and see our men and women there serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I know we all have seen this, on the television, read about it in the news, etc. But unless you're there, it's really hard to probably appreciate the difficult circumstances that these men and women were there defending rights and liberty to try to liberate people, to have the same kind of liberty that we enjoy here as Utahns. And to be there myself and be in 120-degree heat and having body armor on at the same time gives you a renewed appreciation for the difficult circumstances. To be carried up in a Black Hawk helicopter with machine gun turrets out both sides. It's being so hot, you didn't want to sit in what we call a tornado seat. Some of you have done that. Where when you're open on these Black Hawks and the wind comes in from the turrets turning around, you cannot look out. It is too hot. It's like looking into a hairdryer blower with your eyes. And recognize that that's the conditions that our men and women were asked to come and serve in. It was remarkable for me to see them, and again, good attitudes. The military from Utah, great people, defending their country and trying to help liberate people. I tell you the story because at the end of that, I left Bagram in Afghanistan, which is where they bring people in and triage those who've been hurt in an incident of some kind of combat, IED, some kind of fire. And then they triage them and send them to Longstuhl in Germany. And I went to Germany in this trip, and we flew, that was our last engagement, and we went there, and Longstuhl is a World War II hospital. It's very linear. It has long hallways, miles of hallways, and off of both sides of the hallway are rooms. And again, I had the opportunity to go in there and say, Governor Gary Herbert from Utah, I just want to thank you for your service and wish you well in your recovery. And on behalf of Utah and America, we thank you. I went to the very last room on this wing, and as I went into the room, there were 3 servicemen in there, young men, probably in their early 20s, and one was in a wheelchair. He had lost a leg in an IED incident. And as I tried to engage in them in conversation and said, I want to thank you for your service, it didn't take too long to find out they spoke a different language than I did. And come to find out they're from the country of Germany, Georgia, up by Turkey. And we had a colonel that came in and acted as an interpreter for us so we could engage in conversation. But I'll never forget when the one in the wheelchair, as we had to exchange pleasantries and introductions, he said to me, Governor, it was an honor for us to serve alongside the American military. And I thought about that a lot, not only then, but since. And I tell you the story because I still think about it. It was a defining moment for me in having an understanding of it's not just that we have the biggest bombs, the best personnel, the better aircraft, that we have the better firepower. It's because we represent ideology that the world wants to have. The idea of freedom and liberty is inside every person's heart. They wish they had that. They look to America as the liberator, as the personification of freedom and liberty, coupled with individual responsibility. It makes us such a great country. When he said, I want you to know it was an honor to serve along the American soldier. I remember when Georgia was a part of the Soviet Union and was not our friend, was in fact our enemy. But because of people like we see here and others who are out there talking about the message of freedom and liberty, it's resonated. And when they say they once were enemies, now say it was an honor to serve alongside the American military personnel. It means you bring a lot more to the battlefront than just the biggest guns and the biggest bombs and the biggest firepower. You bring a concept of principles and values that the world needs and other countries hunger for. So when I pay you tribute, I pay tribute on many different levels of what you're doing to make not only our country safe and protect us from the bad people, but also spreading the opportunity for other countries to embrace what we take too often for granted here in America. So I salute you all for your good service and the good work you're doing in changing hearts and minds to help understand the importance of freedom and liberty. So thank you very much. With that, let's have, we've got 3 bills, House Bill 98, House Bill 135, and Senate Bill 35. So let's have our military and then our legislators will speak after that, and then we'll sign the bills. Okay?
Thank you, Governor. What a beautiful day to be here, and what I feel is gratitude. I travel around the country, go to many of the other states, and go to D.C. a lot, and what I'm always left with is this gratitude for being in Utah. What a well-run state. What a place where good things happen. I've told this story before too, and I'll be quick about it, but a couple of months ago, myself and a few of my colleagues were at lunch. It was a birthday, and we took somebody to lunch at a little Chinese restaurant, and I saw a gentleman come in the door that I knew. And I also knew that his home had burned down just a few days ago, and so I walked up and gave him a hug and told him how sorry I was. He still smelled the smoke. And he said that everything was fine, at least his family was safe, and they were going to start the rebuilding process. He went to lunch on his way, and we ate our lunch, and when we were completed and we went to pay the bill, what do you think I found? He bought about 10 lunches. I was so humbled by that, and the guy had just lost his home, just lost everything he owned materially, but yet he saw us and bought us lunch. And I was pretty choked up after that event, and I thought, what a community we live in. What's happening today is also representative of that. Many of you may not know, but until this bill is signed, there was a time before that if a Utah Guardsman responded to an emergency like an earthquake or some other catastrophic event, there was no death gratuity for that soldier. And if they were killed in the line of duty, no death gratuity, and it just didn't seem right. And so our great governor and our legislators came together and made this happen, House Bill 98. And so today, more than anything, I just want to express gratitude again to this wonderful community that we live in, the people that actually care very deeply for those that serve. It means the world to us. We love what we do. But it's wonderful to have citizens that appreciate us, and so we thank you, we love you, and thank you very much for this bill. It means the world to our soldiers and, more importantly, to their families, because as we know, none of us can really get out of the driveway with our families, and they're so important to us, and so we thank you for this today.
Governor Herbert, thanks very much for the declaration and for all your efforts to help military and honor veterans throughout our great state. General Burton was mentioning about the great day as well, and I think most of us had the vision today when we drove up through State Street and came up this hill right here. You saw the beautiful Capitol where we are today, the blue skies behind it, and those 2 flags flying in a slight breeze. They were flying straight out. And I thought, man, it is terrific to be in the state of Utah and having this as a visual backdrop to what we're doing today, the significant pieces. Veterans, there's over 160,000 veterans who call our great state home. And I'd like to recognize representatives from the Disabled American Veterans and the American Legion and the VFW and a commission member Bart Davis for being here with us today as we celebrate and sign some bills and the declaration that the governor just went through. You know, Utah is a tremendous place for veterans and military and their family members to live. We really are looked at as thought leaders. Just this past week, I've been on the phone with a number of my counterparts from across the state, across the country, who run their state agencies of veterans and military affairs. And they say, Gary, what are you guys doing? We saw you're doing this. We just changed our definition or upgraded our definition of a veteran. It goes into effect in July. And it says, hey, we recognize all those who served on active duty and all those who have been deployed, but we also recognize those in Utah who were prepared to be deployed in the reserves and National Guard. They may not ever have been deployed, but we recognize their value and how they protect our communities and our neighbors and our families and our country to make sure that we do the things that the governor mentioned about those in the military on liberty. So we've changed that law and it'll go in effect. The state of Utah has been tremendous in their support for veterans, for military and the reserve components that are looking for employment. Our employment just a few years ago for veterans was over 7.2%. And just about 3 years later, we're underneath 3%. We're the 5th lowest in the country. We have over 9,000 military members or veterans that are using their federal benefits and going to the education. And we promote that. We look all the time for what we can do. Governor Herbert often asks myself and asks others as well, what do we need to do? What's the next thing to assist veterans and military and family members so Utah can continue to be looked upon as a thought leader and how to do it best that nobody else in the country does as well. We have a tremendous legislature that supports it as well, the business community, state agencies, federal, state, local, partners, private, public, they all come together. The governor often talks about unprecedented partnerships, and we truly have that. Sometimes you talk to people in other states, they say, we could never do that in my state. We're too stovepipe. I say, I don't know what a stovepipe is in the state of Utah. We come together as a group and say, what was it yesterday? What are we going to address today? And how are we going to make it better in the future? So we have programs to recognize veterans and those currently serving. We have programs to help with employment and education and homelessness and mental wellness. We look at it all throughout our state. And one of the great things, Representative Paul Ray and Senator Knudsen co-chair a commission on veterans and military affairs. There's 23 of us who come together monthly with a single purpose, is how do we do it better today and tomorrow. So I'm honored to be able to be here today, again on behalf of the 160,000 veterans that call our great state home. We look forward to continuing to do things in the future. And Governor and the legislature and my great friend and great partner, General Burton and the Utah National Guard and many others, we will continue to move forward, and we're going to continue to be a thought leader in the country overall for how we treat our veterans, our military, and our family members. Thank you very much.
First of all, let me just say thank you for your service to the state of Utah. It certainly does not go unnoticed with the legislature. Chairing the commission that Gary talked about, I've learned some interesting things about the military. I've learned that the Navy is actually just a taxi cab service for the Marine Corps. I've learned from the Navy guys that the Marine Corps can't tell time. I've learned a lot about the military, but the greatest thing I've learned is how we work together. And when we look at issues that we definitely need to bring forward to help our military, that everybody jumps on the same team and we get it done. And I can say that in the legislature too. When we bring these bills forward, it's not a Republican-Democrat issue. It's an issue about our military, an issue about the men and women who serve us in uniform, and we try to do what we can to help you out. And again, just thank you for that. House Bill 98 came to me as we were working on the Veterans Military Affairs Commission. Major Drake actually came over, and we were working on some law enforcement issues with benefits, and he said, just so you know, we're lacking a death benefit for the National Guard. And so the commission made that a top priority this year to get that passed, and we worked hard, and the great support from the governor on all these military issues. One thing I can say is Governor Herbert has always been a staunch supporter of the military when we bring legislation. When we talk to him, a lot of times when I talk to the governor about a bill, I got to convince him, we really got to do this, and here's how we're going to do it. But when I meet with him, military things is, what can we do? How can we work together? How can I help you? And let's get it done. And I really appreciate that kind of leadership. House Bill 98 does just that. It gives a death benefit that wasn't there before. Now this is the first step. We're going to look at next year bringing health insurance to the families of those who make the ultimate sacrifice, so that we know that they're covered. Because a lot, what we're looking at are part-time military that has other jobs, that has to support a family. When that breadwinner loses their life, they lose their benefits. And so we want to make sure those benefits extend forward. So that's something I'll be working on for next year with the commission. The other bill, Senate Bill 135, I'll speak for, or Senate Bill 35, I'll speak for Senator Knudsen. We had an issue about license plates, and we have military recognition. We wanted to recognize campaigns and the different combat campaigns that were done, and again through the commission. And for a license plate bill, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth on this, but we came together and we figured out some language, and now we'll be able to offer those. So those are two of the bills, and Representative Hemingway and Senator Davis brought another great benefit forward too. And like I say, these issues with the military and the National Guard, they're bipartisan. There's no partisanship at all. We're able to work together and try to look at what's best for Utah's, what's best for the people that are putting their lives on the line. And thank you for your service, and we'll continue to fight hard for you guys as we go forward. I took a picture before I came up here because I want my constituents to see it isn't about what's here. It's about you guys. It's about what you do for the state, the unsung heroes that we have out there. the hours, the days, the months that you spend away from your families to protect our country. And when you step up in wind events and earthquakes and floods, again, it doesn't go unnoticed, and we'll do what we can to continue to support you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. It is such an honor to be participating here, to look out over this room and see all you great military folks. I can't tell you how it's an honor not only to serve in the Utah legislature, but it's also an honor to be able to run some legislation that's a benefit to people who have given so much for our country and our community. House Bill 135 is something, I happen to be a close relation of a retired brigadier general in the Air Force, Charla Cook. She is my sister-in-law, and she's the one who brought this to me. She had moved recently from Alaska to St. George, and we were talking, once I got elected back into the legislature, we were talking. She said, in Alaska, we had a piece of legislation run to allow veterans who are 50% disabled to go to the state parks for free. And I thought that was a great idea. So we got the legislation written. It was a wonderful experience. I had the state parks folks testify on our behalf, on your behalf. Gary Harder as well, and everyone was together on this. We support our military people. We truly appreciate what you do and what you have done. And if there's anything I can ever do, military for the military community, my phone number's in that little book with the pictures. I'm glad to do it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here to address you on this beautiful spring morning in the month of military duty in the state of Utah. Take a look. I want to salute those of you in uniform and thank you for the hard work you do and the energy you give to the state of Utah to make us a better place. And to the veterans who have taken off the uniform and hung it in their closet, but have not forgotten their valor, to be remembered by us in the leadership of the state of Utah is equally important. So thank you. Thank you very much for all of your service.
Well, we'll proceed to the signing right now. Let me just say, I have a great opportunity to serve in what I think is the greatest state in America today, Utah. We are leading in so many different ways, and really what we see exhibited here today is the ability to come together, the collaboration, the cooperation that Representative Ray talks about and General Burton talked about. I have a number of different titles besides governor, some of them good and some of them not so good, people say. But the one that's the most humbling to me, and I want you as military people to know this, is when they call me Commander-in-Chief. Commander-in-Chief is a humbling title to me, because I know how extraordinary your service is and your dedication to our country and to our state. So I'm honored to be here, and I thank all those who've brought us together today and really provided this opportunity for us to, in a more public way, say we appreciate your service. May is Military Personnel Appreciation Month. We ought to have that appreciation all 12 months, all 365 days out of the year. But we're going to set aside May as one to kind of ramp up a little bit more of a public appreciation for our military personnel, men and women. And we thank you very much for service. So now we'll sign, and whoever needs to be or wants to be in the photo op here, now will be the time to come forward. All right, is this on? Turn the switch on. Okay, there we go. First bill we'll sign here is House Bill 98. Chief sponsor, Representative Paul Ray. Senate sponsor was Senator Pete Knudsen. It's National Guard death benefit amendments that you've heard Representative Ray talk about. And I will fix my signature here. Okay, that's one. The next one is House Bill 135. Chief sponsor, Representative Lynn Hemingway. Senate sponsor, Senator Gene Davis. This is state parks fee exemption amendments, so helping save some of the expenses for our veterans. That's two. And our last one, this is Senate Bill 35. Chief sponsor, Senator Pete Knudsen. House sponsor, Paul Ray. This provides for a special license plate for veterans of a campaign or combat theater. So we get a special license plate now. We've made that available. Senate Bill 35, and I will sign my name to this. And now we can all clap.